Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome back to another second channel video. Today I'm wearing glasses so you can't see my eyes because of weird reflections and stuff, but just trust me when I say that I'm excited to talk about today's subject, which is effectively proposed countries, or better yet, let's say potential new countries, because everyone knows that when you look at Catalonia in Spain, it's a region that maybe wants to be independent. Everyone knows that when you look at Scotland, oh, some of the people there would like to secede from the UK, and the same thing is true with Quebec and Canada. These are the most famous secession movements, at least in the Western speaking world, and so interestingly enough, I wanted to talk about examples of that aren't so famous, but yet have some really cool flags, because I love vexillology, I love looking at flags, and I wanted to show you this flag of a real proposed country. I wanted to show you this flag of a country that genuinely is going to exist potentially very soon, and I want to show you this flag of a real region in Argentina, because yes, this sounds like some fan-made thing of like, oh, what if I was half Argentine and half Welsh, but this is a real thing, and allow me to explain it to you, because yes, we're talking about some proposed countries today, and we'll start by talking about Wales, of course, because Wales is a country inside of the UK. That's what the UK calls its subdivisions. However, unlike Scotland, which of course had its own colonies, Wales never did, because Wales has been a part of England and Wales for as long as basically the colonial era has existed. So although there are some Scottish colonies, there aren't any Welsh colonies out there, which is why it's so confusing to learn that if you go to the other side of the world, to Argentina, which wasn't even an English or Scottish colony anyway, when you look there and you look around, it's like, okay, so let's go over here, shall we? Let's go to this lovely village right here, Gay Man, shall we? Which, you know, very fitting for the people that apparently live there. And oh, what is this? Is this a Welsh name for a place? That's weird, but that's a one-off. Oh, what's this? Plastic. You know, that's probably a one-off too. And then you actually, go to Street View, you look around this lovely little town, and you find that, like, oh, there's a Welsh flag here for some reason. Wait, are you telling me for real that this bit about this flag being real was not a joke? No, yes, there is really a Welsh colony in Patagonia, Argentina. So the explanation as to why is very, very interesting to me. How exactly is there Welsh inside? How exactly does that happen inside of a very Spanish-speaking colony? And by the way, in case you're curious, even though there are thousands of Welsh speakers for real in this town, and if you look around, you'll find some of it, in reality, even in the epicenter of it, you'll still find that it's mostly in Spanish, because this is inside Argentina, it's worth saying. But how exactly do Welsh speakers end up here in a significant enough number to get their own flag? You know, what's the deal with this? It's a beautiful flag, I do like it, but what is the situation? And to explain it to you simply, because you won't believe me if I don't show you the article, basically, this was in 1865, so long after all the colonies been settled, and basically a Welsh nationalist, non-conformist preacher. So a Welsh nationalist was like, we need the Welsh language to survive, we need a little Wales beyond Wales, effectively a Welsh colony, and so he just decided to look for places he could start one, and he decided on maybe Australia, maybe New Zealand, maybe even Palestine, which is hilarious. Like, I feel like, if we need a two-state solution, maybe the two-state solution can include Wales in there somewhere, I'm just saying. Anyway, so basically, in the end, Argentina offered 100 square miles of land along the Chubut River in exchange for helping to settle the land, because like every country in the 1800s, even if you're a colony with a huge amount of land, and again, if you look at the amount of land that Argentina has, and even now isn't really using, it's like, yeah, we might as well give it to people, let them settle it, and do some other weird things. That's why there's such a huge German community in the Dakotas, if I'm not mistaken. That's why when there's unsettled land, give it to whoever will make it something good, as long as they agree to be part of Argentina. And so even though this is a whole separate colony with a whole wacky story that goes on and on and on, the reality is it very much is a part of Argentina. It doesn't have any realistic way to secede from it, given the way Argentina works, but it's fascinating nonetheless. And that's kind of the story for the second one, because having a dragon on your flag's cool, but you know what's prettier? Having a swan on there. I love this flag so much. First of all, because of the fact that it has a swan on it, a black swan, something Australia's famous for. For real, can we go to Western Australia now? Before we talk about the flag and this being a real thing, let's talk about the balance of power in Australia. People, I had a comment being very upset by an Australian when I said that Australian states were more different than American states, but I'm doubling down on that stance. Australian states are very, very different to each other, mostly because of their size and actual effective distance from each other. Even though, like California and Arizona are right next door, and they kind of just blend from one to the other. You can go straight from Edinburgh to Blythe. Those are weird names for places. You can go straight from Yuma to Winter Haven. Is there really a place in California called Winter Haven? Do you think this looks like a place that deserves to be called Winter Haven? Yep, this looks like a place. You know what? It looks colder than you'd expect for California this far south, huh? Anyway, so in the same way that, you know, the states can kind of blur together that way, but in Australia, especially Western Australia, all the people live all the way over here, and then there's a long gap where, although there's technically things, there's not actually things here. Look at this stop. That is the only town for, like, it's the closest. The next town over is Cockbiddy, which is hilarious. First of all, Cocklebiddy, I should say. But it's 64 kilometers away. So the only town for 64 kilometers in Western Australia looks like this. It is. I thought there'd at least be houses here. There is a gap. How do they even get the petrol to the petrol station? That's my question. Like, how does this work? How do they? There is a petrol station here, but how does the petrol get here? I don't understand. Anyway, so it's just a petrol station in the middle of nowhere. The end of the 90 miles straight. It's wacky, right? Anyway, so Western Australia, very far apart from the rest of the states. The same thing is kind of true of South Australia. Like, you know, it's less to a lesser extent. But the states all have a big city where most of the population is based around, and then there's a whole ton of nothing. And Western Australia has always, you know, like the rest of the Australian colonies, although they're kind of close together, Western Australia is so far apart and so isolated, and basically has always had this, like, unique cowboy, we're gonna do it ourselves attitude. They have a ton of natural resources too, and so that brings us to the flag. There we go. So Western Australia is not just a fun like vision. Again, it's not like role-playing as like, oh yeah, the Welsh totally want to leave Argentina. No, this is a real thing. The Western Australians have always felt a bit different, and so they wanted to be called the Dominion of Weststralia, and they didn't just want to be called it, they actively, again, this sounds like a thing that is fake, but they actively actually had a referendum in 1933, and they didn't just have a referendum, they won by a 66% to 33% yes-no landslide. So Western Australia voted in 1933 to secede from the Commonwealth of Australia, and you know what happened? The United Kingdom, who were in charge at the time, just said, no, we don't want two countries there, we want one, and so, fun fact, it's just not. And so even wackier, because it was going through this process at the time of Western Australia, for Australia coming together, that means that it's the only state not specifically listed in the preamble to the Australian Constitution, because, yeah, fun fact, Western Australia, or Weststralia, never became a nation. And I think, okay, here's the thing. Even though for Australia, it's definitely a good thing to keep Western Australia in, I'd even say for Western Australia, probably maybe overall better in the Union. Again, it depends on what your priorities are. If your priorities are like min-maxing, like international stuff, I bet you, yeah, again, like it depends on what you want from a country, whether Western Australia would do good on itself or not. But if we weren't Australians, I feel like the debate about whether Australia is a continent or not is much harder because it's all one country. Again, it's absurd that this is just one country with only 24 million people living there. If this was Weststralia and this was Eaststralia, when, you know, as it is in the dream, I feel like it'd be easier to see it as a continent. In the same way, North America, if the United States invaded Canada, invaded Mexico again, and just decided to take all of that, then it'd be much harder to argue that North America was a continent, even though it's very big and has lots of land. Because again, something about cultural diversity is how we define continents. It's dumb that we do, but why is Asia separate to Europe? Oh yeah, because like Asian cultures are the ones with the funny food and the you know, like it's over there, whereas European cultures are the one with the colonialism and the cobblestone roads. That's the way that works, you see. And again, so we use culture as a dividing line, and so because Australia is so similar culturally, it's harder to lock it down. Whereas if we had Weststralia, as we all know, the Swan Nation, which again, I love this flag so much. The whole reason I'm making this video is because I found this flag yesterday, and then I found out about this today, and I was like, you know what? Let's make an old style video where I just talk about interesting things I found in the last 24 hours. And so there are other interesting places that want to be a country. I have to talk about Tibet a little bit, not because it's a great idea to, because you know, don't want to upset Daddy China in any way. However, the Tibet flag, because again, Tibet's one of the most wide-known independence movements in the world. However, compare, you know, this delightful flag here. Ooh, mwah, good job. Iwidilfa. Wait, how do you say that? Iwudava. I don't know the Wikipedia. No one knows the way these things are. I should learn it sometimes so I can pronounce things, but it's much better to just say it incorrectly. So why Wuladafa? If that's wrong, can you let me know in the comments? And this is Westralia. And then this is Taibi. It's definitely a silent T. Type. Anyway, so Tybe over here is a interesting place, but I feel like this flag is the reason I'm not supporting Tibetan independence. I mean, first of all, you might think that like the yellow cuts off on one side. That's ugly. This border already messing up. Having a border on a flag already ugly. Putting the border like this, not great. I love these, like, you know, this rising sun with the things around it, but the rays coming out into each of those sections, it's too much. Just have a sun, just have the red-blue stripes, and then this bottom thing down here, I love the yin-yang, but having two weird, like, green dragons play with it, they look like they're dogs that have dyed their hair in a funny way and shaven them most of the place. And then what's this? There's some bowling skittles, or what are they called? The bowling ball pins, on fire in the center. Like, what are we meant to take from this? Like, oh yeah, when it comes to bowling, we're fire as a nation. I just, you know, long story short, I don't like the Tibetan flag, and that's when I flip-flopped on this one. I was like, you know what? On the one hand, I believe in the right to self-determination, but if self-determination leads to this flag, I don't know that if I support that anymore. What we're talking about China, by the way, there's a lot of China news because the Taiwan president has said that they want to boost their defenses so that they don't have to bow down to China, and it's interesting because at the same time, China says, oh yeah, well, reunification must be fulfilled. And he said it in such a, again, like, it's funny to me, big countries say things in such foreboding ways. So they said unification should be achieved peacefully, but warned the Chinese people had a glorious tradition of opposing separatism. And it's so interesting because the way that he puts it, reunification, implies that Taiwan is a separate place that is to be joined in, whereas the way the Taiwanese president puts it, that is like, will not bow down, sounds a lot like a country trying to become independent, and so it's weird, because the official stance is that Taiwan is independent. Yeah, we control all of China, whereas China's like, yeah, it is a part of China, but they're kind of role-playing each other's stances here. I don't know why that is. I'm sure this is like Western media, like using certain words or whatever. Again, when you're talking about language barriers that are that big, of course there's going to be some weird stuff. But yeah, so what is my favorite potential country? You guys hear about this place that definitely isn't independent right now? I mean, as you can see, this man, actually, this man right here, this lovely fella, says that it's not. I do have to say, I like their flag. I like it more than the People's Republic of China. I think that's the reason, again, like, as much as we love the People's Republic of China, they do many great things for the world, like, anyway, so as much as we love China, the great thing about the flag is that, as you can see, this one is like got much more character. It's like something about it. It's evoking some stuff. I feel like there's a lot of dead space here. Like it's too like odd. Like again, it kind of burns. It's the same when your flag is the same color as my Canada A t-shirt. It's not doing very good. It's just such a bright burning red. Again, we should just put like a picture of Taiwan. Actually, not a picture. Something geometrical, just like an X, or better yet, because everyone loves a Union Jack, throw a Union Jack in the corner. I'm just saying. Like, no one would even bat an eye, and then the UK might be like, oh, darn, that's a former colony. Better defend that. Just saying. Pro tip. Taiwanese people listening right here. Anyway, the final example I wanted to talk about today, because I feel like we've done enough offending people talking about the China issues for one day. Let's talk about this country. Do you know which country it is? You should know, because it's in the corner here. This is the flag of Bougainville, a autonomous region of Papua New Guinea. Do you know Papua New Guinea? You don't even know Papua New Guinea. Are you you know, you say you know geography, but you don't even know all the places. Anyway, this is Papua New Guinea. It is very close to Australia, as you can see, and it's a wonderful, wonderful place with a separate island over here, which is suspiciously close, you might notice, to the Solomon Islands. In fact, I think historically speaking, it's part of the Solomon Islands chain, so it's very strange that they got divided that way. And basically, these people don't feel like they're a part of the Papua New Guinea, and they also don't feel really part of the Solomon Islands. What's the solution to that? Independence. Yeah, you better believe it. And so, yeah, if you look into it, obviously they had a referendum in 2019, and I actually have an update for that, because we've all known that Bougainville is likely to be the newest country at some point. The current timeline for that is 2027. This sounded like a really good piece of news when you read into it at first, like, oh yeah, that's 6 years from now, right? Bougainville will be this will be a real flag for a real country with a real, look at this emblem they've got here. Look at this map that we'll be able to see. But yeah, if you look at this, it's exciting. This will be a new place in 2027. However, the referendum they held was still officially non-binding, and it's not going to be officially binded until the 11th National Parliament tables the outcome and ratifies the results in 2023. That's 2 years, again, two pretty turbulent years it looked like, and they basically came to the conclusion of like, okay, yeah, we'll accept 2027, but the fact that they're like, yeah, you can go independent in 6 years, either it's some very prudent politicking to like, oh yeah, let's make sure this is safe and everyone agrees internationally and it's all good, or it's a clever way to, the more time you buy for these sorts of things, the better they'll go for your side. You don't say you can never be independent. You just say in the future. It's 2027. That seems as good a year as any. Anyway, so this is the flag of Bougainville. I like this flag. I think this is just it meets that perfect mix of complex and simple. I like the colors. Again, it's like this looks like a a peppermint candy. Then there's a black thing going around there. Then there's white, green, and some white. There's a lot of colors going on. Some would say too many, but otherwise, it's the most exciting new country. However, here's the interesting question. So this is a country of about 250,000 people that exists currently inside of Papua New Guinea, and I wanted to talk about this place because it's a great example of like, there will be one new country in 2027, potentially, maybe, probably. And so, do you think the world gets more culturally diverse when that happens? Or is it actually that there was already a 196th culture that just existed inside of Papua New Guinea? It's actually that second one, right? And so how do we decide when a culture is interesting enough to be worth talking about by itself? I mean, can we in good faith argue that, I'm going to be mean to a country right here. Let's pick one carefully. Can we in good faith argue that Tonga, a Polynesian kingdom of more than 170 South Pacific islands, can we in good faith, maybe a bad example actually. Let's pick Fiji. Actually, not Tuvalu's the best example. Can we in good faith argue that Tuvalu, a 9-island complex in the South Pacific with fewer than 100,000 people, where something like 1/10 of their island's GDP is from selling the .tv domains, can we in good faith argue that has as much interesting, unique culture as, say, Syria does, as, say, let's pick again. We have to go not European because some people will be like, "Oh, well, European." Can we argue it has as much, interesting, unique cultures as Colombia does, or Argentina? Argentina has a place inside of it where the people speak Welsh. Look at this. This is a real flag that exists. I would argue it's not true. People focus far too much on the number of countries when countries are actually just the number of national governments that negotiate on a national scale, and that number is only going to go up as time goes on, but it doesn't mean that unique cultures are appearing from thin air. When you look inside of Spain, you find unique stories to the south, to the northeast. Someone recently recommended to me that I go to, there's a weird there's one part of Spain, I actually don't know where it is. I feel like it's here somewhere. Because of the mount, actually wait, we'll use Google Maps to work it out. Let's find where the mountains are in Spain. Okay, so there's one part of Spain, because it was so mountainous, it never got conquered by the Muslims, so they have their like if you don't know, Islam took over Spain in like the early part of the last millennium. Anyway, so because of that, they have this like Celtic culture that is most similar with like Brittany and Britain itself, and that's quirky and interesting, right? That's strange. That's an interesting culture that's just as worth talking about as some of these other ones. People in their need to like understand the world use these views that we have in some great ways to kind of miss the point sometimes. And so yeah, the truth is honestly, the real truth is there's an infinite number of unique cultures in this world, right? Because every individual is a unique culture in their own right. You are entirely different to me, I assume, because you don't get interested. Actually, I guess if you're watching this video, you maybe are interested by the weird things I dove into and found out about in the last 24 hours, but maybe you're not. Either way, I just wanted to say that the number of countries is not synonymous with the number of cultures, and that we're all unique and independent in our own way. Thank you for watching. Second channel. Oh wait, this video is sponsored by the Autonomous Republic of Bougainville. Go there sometime on a holiday, probably. It probably isn't even that dangerous. I bet you won't die. Almost certainly. Yeah, that's my bet. Also, you can support me on patreon.com/toycat. Yeah! Self-plug. Okay, goodbye. This video doesn't deserve your financial support. Don't do it.